So, my name is Josh Madsen, and I'm here to talk to you today. Thank you for having me about European windows and how they can add and be specified for your passive house projects. And a little bit about me, I have a background in landscape architecture and kind of fell into a project managerial role with one of the other European window companies for about 7 years. And then I worked with an American window company for about three, but have hence since set out to bring some fantastic windows for your guys' projects. And so at first, I want to run through some of the product lines and talk about what's new, and then talk about everything Passive House. And then last but certainly not least, a little bit about installation details, shipping containers over from Europe, and how we service and support your projects. So the first window I wanted to talk about are the UPVC windows, which the first item I always like to highlight is that UPVC will come in at about half the price compared to similar wood and aluminum windows. So we see these a lot on passive house window projects across the board. And what's new about these products is we have some new corner welding machines. It's a neat little detail. If you look at the photo on the right, we have almost a seamless joinery of the corner. So architects like to see this instead of having kind of gummy corners. That's a new product development over the last couple of years that clients have really enjoyed. And then with UPVC windows, when architects are specifying them, one item I always like to convey is the general rule of thumb on operable units such as swing doors, such as lift and slides, is that you're working within the size limitation of about 8 feet tall. And that applies across the board for UPVC windows. It's just something to keep in mind. And I think it's a fantastic product. And a little bit about UPVC windows and the Epic UPVC compared to some of the competitors is that we have larger wall thickness. So in this cross section, you can kind of see it, but kind of not. But it's really when you hold these windows during installation or you're operating the tilt and turn and swing windows that you get a real feel for the rigidity. That combined with tubular steel in the frame, as well as added air chambers. With 6 or 7 air chambers, it really boosts that overall frame performance while offering excellent rigidity, which kind of enhances the Epic window over some of the other UPVC windows out there on the market. Now moving to the thermally broken all aluminum windows. We just within the last few years had a great advancement with an improved thermal break, where the previous model on a typical window usually came around to a U value of 0.19. The new model is a boosted frame performance. It's the same glass, same hardware, just an improved thermal break, which boosted the overall window U value to about a 0.16 on average. And again, these are the standard windows. We'll get more into the passive house windows in a little bit here. With the thermally broken all aluminum windows, you have the added sizing opportunities to go well above 8 feet to up to 10-foot tall swing doors. And then one of our new product developments also is the lift and slide doors can now go up to 13.5 feet tall, which I think is really cool, really fun. So you architects can draw these lift and slide doors to the sky is really the limit these days. And lastly, we do have a new patio slider. So it's not a lift and slide. It's more of a traditional patio slider without the lift, where the outside frame is just 2.5 inches and the center mullion on the patio slider is just 1 inch. So with the all aluminum, I just wanted to highlight with you guys that the ultra slim framing is really something that has come in to be really cool. And clients have been plugging these in on their projects, have really enjoyed the ultra slim profile sizes, which also helps because when you reduce the frame size, you of course maximize the glass, and the glass has a U value of 0.09. So maximizing that glass surface area compared to the framing has really helped out with energy modeling. A cool new trick that we have worked through in the last few years also with the all aluminum windows is instead of taking two separate units with an individual frame and mulling them together on site, we kind of have gotten rid of it to where you can site assemble traditional fixed residential units. So instead of stacking two units together, it's essentially just one. And so what that does is it cuts framing in half. Again, the all aluminum is bringing ultra slim framing profile opportunity for your design. So it cuts the framing, increases the glass area, but it also kind of emulates a curtain wall. But with this assembly, it's actually about half the price of a curtain wall while having, yes, cutting prices and increasing glass is what architects love. So that's been a neat little trick. It's two little screws in the corner, and clients seem to really enjoy the new product. Moving on to what I believe to be the best product out there are the wood and wood clad units. This is our standard 88 millimeter frame. It's the European style, so there's three air seals. It boasts excellent performance, coming in at about a U.15 on the window, and this is the standard. This is not quite, or sorry, 0.16 or 17, not quite the passive house yet, but we'll get there in a little bit. And then with the all wood window, we actually use a 92 millimeter frame. Again, same design principles of triple air seals, the U.09 glass, the tilt and turn in swing function with the lift and slide doors. These windows are a fan favorite of Passive House because, of course, working with all wood, you have carbon sequestration. With aluminum windows and PVC windows, they're great. But at the end of the day, I believe wood to be the best option because it helps you sleep better at night, knowing you have that sequestered carbon in your windows. So when looking at windows, just something to highlight with the Epic window that's going to compare to the rest is you're going to say, hey, Josh, that window looks like every other European tilt and turn window on the market. But this is where I like to highlight our added advantage and added value is that really the fit and finish of our wood windows where we produce at our factory, we have an automatic painting machine which bodes best not so much for speed as it does consistency. And so when you see these windows, when they go through the painting machine, they'll paint and sand multiple times. And so when you see the end product, that's really where you will see a difference compared to some of the other windows on the market. And then with the wood and wood grain alignments, these windows just have a little bit better of a fit and finish, especially in the corners. It's kind of a neat, it's very small, very minute. It's for the discerning eye, but when you see our windows and see them in person, you'll really say, hey, this is noticeably better. And now, moving on to the best of the best. So I'd like to talk with you guys here today about each of the product lines and the passive house windows. So for all the way over on the left, we have, of course, our UPVC window. Again, triple air seal, triple pane, argon-filled glass with a Swiss spacer technology. Overall, window U values come in at about a 0.14. It is a window that clients certainly love because it's more budget oriented and it doesn't quite have the same sizing opportunity as the aluminum or wood, but coming in at less than half the price, it is certainly a fan favorite and a tried and true product over the years. And then in the center, you will see our Passive House all thermally broken all aluminum window. And so this window certainly has a very low U value with the U window coming in about a 0.13. But when you increase the glazing surface area and specify fixed windows, for example, an 8-foot by 10-foot fixed window, those U values can go as low as a 0.10. And this window has an improved thermal break. It's about 104 millimeters thick, so it's a little bit wider than the other standard all aluminum window, but it also has boasts those triple air seals and triple pane glass. And then all the way over on the right is the tried and true Passive House wood clad window. And so this is improved compared to the standard wood clad window by having that added layer of insulation. It has an extra air seal, so it actually boasts 4 air seals instead of just 3, and has very, very good U values with a standard U window coming in around a 0.12 and kind of bounces around depending on glazing to frame ratios. And so talking more a little bit about the UPVC, this is a Passive House Institute rated B window for temperate climate. And with energy modeling and the projects we work on, we always recommend installing the window towards the center of the envelope. With energy modeling, that just bodes best for performance. And with every project, we will typically see a lot of over insulation at the frame, especially at the sides and head jamb. And then at the sill, of course, we always have to specify an installation detail that if water ever gets under the frame, it has an escape route. And so with every project, we will always work through an installation detail because every passive house is different. Every building envelope is different. Depending on where that window is going to be built on the building envelope, we like to work through an installation detail on each of your projects. Now with the all aluminum window, also a Passive House B rated window, Passive House Institute B rated window for temperate climates. This window also has the opportunity of having over insulation at the frame, at the sides, and at the head. And again, at the sill, you need your rain pan that rolls underneath towards the front of the window. Again, if water ever gets under the window, it needs to have an escape route. So again, we like to work through installation details on your passive house projects, depending on your return trim detail, your exterior siding, and what type of building materials you have in your building envelope that works best for you and your installers. And then we move on to the bee's knees again. So this is a Passive House Institute B rated window, but for cold climate. So this one really takes the cake when it comes to the ultimate passive house window for projects in Minnesota or Wisconsin, which I think I forgot to mention that I'm actually out of Madsen, Wisconsin here and talking to you guys from Madison. So I'm well familiar with how cold it can get when those northerlies come down. So for the wood clad window, this is about 109 millimeter frame. It has the added foam in the frame for boosted frame performance, and it has 4 air seals instead of 3, so that air tightness rating is, of course, at the top. And so with the wood clad window, the thermally broken all aluminum window, and the UPVC window, of course, we have all PHPP modeling values, including size spacer values, frame values, glass values. And another item I wanted to highlight is glass solar heat gain coefficient. Is that on every project and a lot of projects these days, we're kind of mixing and matching the solar heat gain coefficient. And so our standard solar heat gain comes in around a 0.53, and we can go as high as a 0.60, which we don't see too terribly often. But sometimes with those floor to ceiling, wall to wall glazing units that architects love to specify these days, the last thing we want is a phone call from the client at 10 a.m. in the morning in the middle of November saying, Josh, why is my kitchen 80 degrees and why is my air conditioner kicking on? So with passive house projects, we like to look at each project, all of the energy modeling, and work between about a 0.23 solar heat gain coefficient is as low as we go, up to that 0.60, and kind of go in between to figure out with you and your projects what solar heat gain coefficient works best. And a lot of projects will mix and match. So moving into the last slide, and with Epoc Windows and keeping your contractors happy, I just wanted to run through a few items that we work on every project. to make sure every window is kind of form fit for your building envelope, make sure your contractors are happy, which ultimately keeps you, the architects, happy and the homeowner. So with every project, we run through an installation detail review process. And so that way we look at, again, your building envelope, your how to connect to your critical air and water barrier, what kind of siding you have, return trim details, over insulating at the frame. And so prior to framing out the house, we will work with you to hammer out a installation detail that's form fit for your project. And then in regards to contractor coordination, we like to make sure or to minimize head scratching when these windows deliver. And so that involves just having all documentation, how to adjust hardware, what the container will look like upon delivery, how to unload the windows, to make sure, or a critical item like the photo on the left is we will site mull units and break them apart. So instead of sending over a window that's 2,000 pounds, we might break it into, 2 or 3 separate pieces. So you can crane them in, use a telehandler, fork them in, and with suction cups and such, be able to install these windows without too much cause for concern. So we just like to review everything with the contractor prior to delivery. And then with on-site technical support, we have Epic technicians, and they are available for dispatch across the country. And our technicians, most of them have over 10 years experience working with European windows. And so they are available to work with your team to, for example, install a tilt turn, install a fixed window, a swing door, install a lift and slide, walk through the installation detail or the adjustment process with the hardware, sorry. And that way, it's a great way for your team to familiarize yourself with European windows and how to adjust them for long-term care. And then last, but certainly not least, ongoing service with European windows. We have callbacks often years down the road, so we are always here to help if a hardware set just doesn't seem to be working right. Of course, there is the replacement IGU. We are always here to help with ongoing service through the lifetime of your windows. And that wraps it up for me here today. So I wanted to bring you guys over to questions and answers.
Great, Josh. Thank you.
I have a question. With all of the review services you do for these projects, how do you come up with cost for that project since everyone would be different?
Ah, yes, that's a great question, actually, because every project is a balance of your budget requirements, your energy goals with energy modeling, and then also your design goals as well. So each project, we can bounce between product lines. So say, for example, if you have energy goal requirements, but you have budget needs as well, we can actually go in between, jump in between different frame profiles, glass specifications. For example, in the all aluminum, there's about 3 different profile options that we can kind of go in between. So it's 10% more in cost here, but 10% less in performance there. So each project is a balance of budget as well as materials. For example, in the photo you see there, you have a typical bitch-a-thing tape, whereas some projects have an ultimate budget to have a liquid applied air and water barrier, similar to a Prosoco product or similar. So each project with the installation detail, we can advise on relative cost of each product, frame material, and how to connect your window to your critical air and water barrier.
Let me ask a clarifying question. For when a customer is submitting a project to you to purchase windows and you're reviewing the details and the modeling for that project, how does your business come up with the pricing to do that service? Not necessarily the window pricing, I'm sorry.
Right. We can offer ballpark pricing, but we don't specialize so much in the building materials in between the window and the building envelope. So we do our best to kind of ballpark for good, better, best. So you can work with your client and your contractor to find out what's the most suitable product and installation detail. So we kind of have varying levels. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I have questions I can follow up on what I sent in the chat. Those are quick question. Do you also make doors? Second question is, do you make non-clad wood windows? The third is, do you make round windows? And the fourth is, what is the warranty? I can repeat them.
Oh, yes. So for doors, absolutely. And that's a great question because all of the swing doors actually share the same frame as the windows. So you can line up the head heights, glass lines. They have the multiple air seals. So the swing doors, most of the time will specify in swing. It bodes best for performance. There are outswing doors. Everything is custom, especially with wood, aluminum. A lot of our doors are full light, so they'll be mostly glass. And the tilt and turn windows have locking points on all sides for air tightness. And so the doors share a similar hardware kind of construction standard of having multiple locking points to be airtight to pass the blower door test. So doors are absolutely specified with the window package. Thanks for asking. I should have talked a little bit more about doors. And then, of course, lift and slide doors are the Cadillac product, where the lifting mechanism of the door not only allows for a smooth operation of the lift and slide door, but it also helps for air tightness when you drop that lift and slide down. And then we do also specify accordion style bifold doors sometimes, but with the accordion bifold door, because you have so many joints and so many seams, the air tightness isn't always the best. So we don't really see bifold doors on Passive House too terribly often. And then to answer your question about all wood windows, absolutely. All wood windows are available. The only aluminum on the outside will be at the sill just to protect against rain, against water, against sunlight. But at the sides and head is an all wood window without the aluminum rain screen cladding. And I'm glad you asked that question because those windows actually have been gaining in popularity as of recently because architects love to build houses with all wood on the outside, and they're not big fans of having little strips of aluminum around just the windows because you're protecting obviously the frame against light. So the all wood windows in larch and oak and Meranti have been skyrocketing in popularity, even in northern climates where exposure is quite a bit because architects again don't always like aluminum rain screen cladding. And that frame next to the aluminum rain screen cladding, the wood compared to the wood clad window, they'll share very similar design profiles. But of course, with the wood, it's just wood on the outside, which is beautiful and I think it's great. And then for the round windows, yes, absolutely. With windows, we do have round windows, but sizing limitations are always we have to work within certain sizes because of construction. So there are round windows, trapezoid windows, rhombus windows, really anything to work within the corner joinery of how the frames come together and the glass manufacturing process, because sometimes there's certain limitations of specifying odd shaped windows with the glass manufacturers. And then I did miss your last question.
It was about warranty.
Oh yes, warranty is 5, 5, and 10. So it's going to be 5 on basically all of the product, the frame, the hardware, the everything in between the guts, and then 10 years will be on the glass. And with warranty, of course, it's an industry standard, the 5, 5, and 10. That's what most other European manufacturers will offer. And then with Epoc Windows, we of course are bringing over multiple containers to the US a month every month. So when it comes to warranty and Windows says, hey, something breaks a couple years down the road, we always put your new replacement unit on another container. So lead times on warranty items are short, are good.
Josh, I want to fire off a question here regarding exterior motorized shades, because they're always a good partner for a cold climate passive house. And maybe as a second piece, a riser. I saw that all the sections you showed are basically same frame on the jam as it is on the sill. You talked about it a little bit with a plastic window. Just maybe talk a little bit more about the riser or the sill condition to make sure that this works.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Tim. So for exterior Venetian blinds, of the best shade solution is the outside shade solution. Knock out the sun before it gets into your house. And so for our climates up here in the Midwest and to the north, we work with Hella out of Europe, and Hella is an industry leader. And so for your project, because we're already bringing a container over, if you would like to include that on your order, we can absolutely work through the details with you. And oftentimes the details will be what kind of slat do you want? Can you have some sort of mounting bracket on the side, the up-down mechanism, size and limitations. So we're able to work through all of the details. And this is another thing for an installation detail process, because of course it's going to have to incorporate on your sill pan, your sides, how are you going to wrap it into the building envelope with your exterior insulation. So working with Hella out of Europe is ideal on passive house projects because they really are the best of the best. And then, Tim, to answer your question about risers, is that we will, on our PVC windows and our aluminum windows, we do offer different risers, particularly for the sill. All of our PVC windows ship with on a riser just for packaging purposes, and a lot of clients will actually install the window with that riser. But when it comes to sill pans and having that window come up a little bit so your construction crew can have a good time of returning the interior trim, the sills on the inside, the pans on the outside, risers are absolutely available. And then with the wood, we would just work through a product that you could use on site.
Sounds good. How about insect screens?
Yes, glad you asked about insect screens, because for windows, not a problem. 100% window insect screens. We actually have a new insect screen material where it kind of has a little cross weave into it. And so when you hold it up, the clarity is improved compared to the old traditional weave of the fiberglass mesh, where the technology is improved, where it's getting better and better. But for swing doors and lift and slide doors, we are a window company. We don't have the engineering team to continually innovate doors that screen door solutions for you guys. So we typically work with companies like, for example, Phantom or Centaur. And those screen companies, they have a dedicated team of engineers. They're the best of the best. They're constantly innovating. So whereas we don't particularly provide screen solutions for doors, we are here to help you guys specify and detail out door solutions for your lift and slide doors, your swing doors, particularly the larger units, where sometimes the roll-up screen options, you can go vertically or horizontally, as well as the plissé, the accordion style, are always a great solution through companies like Phantom or Centaur.
If nobody else has any questions, I'll ask you, tempered or laminated, or either?
Great question. Tempered and laminated cost the same. I would err. That's a great question. Laminated glass will offer 99% UV protection. And when you add extra sheets of plastic in the laminated layer, you can actually have burglar resistance, where it's very hard to break in. So to answer your question off right away, I would say laminated. But tempered, glass, of course, to meet code is always what we see most. But laminated glass with the 99% UV protection, as well as protection from unwanted entry, my answer would be laminated.
I can ask another question. Is the wood of your window from sustainable forestry?
Oh yes, everything is FSC certified. And so with the wood and our wood sources, they are really the best of the best. So everyone is vetted to make sure our windows aren't coming from areas you don't want to source your windows from. So all of the wood is FSC certified, and all of the wood is really, we only go to the best wood sources. So with the wood grain alignment of the larch and the pine, and then the finished product of the oak and and Meranti, we really only go to the best sources to make sure the window is sustainable throughout.
You mentioned the size and the big sizes that you offer. I know a shipping container only has an opening of 8.5 feet, even for the tall one. Can you do more than 8 feet in both directions, or only in one direction?
Typically, it's just one direction. You can either load the window in vertically or hot dog go horizontally. And so the 8.5 foot, depending on whether or not you put it on a pallet, is a good rule of thumb, is to keep one of those leg lengths shorter than 8.5 feet. But we do have the diagonal container loading would be our next step. That's kind of plan B. And then plan C is open top. However, delivering open top containers with logistics throughout the shipping process is not fun. So we tried to, that's plan C always, the open top shipping container, which only gains an extra few inches on the height of the container. It's not where the unit's shooting out of the top of the container. It's just the doors, you don't have that 6-inch loss in the door height. So that's kind of plan C. But to answer your question, working with one leg length of less than 8.5, about 8 foot 3 inches is a good rule of thumb. But if you do want to go above that, which we do a lot, we can side load units, and also a lot of the all aluminum units, we can actually ship the glass separate from the frame, and that way we can actually gain a little bit extra. So there's a few tricks up our sleeve.
Okay, if you side load, how tall can you go if you side load?
That's a good question. About 9 feet to go diagonally, but it depends on every project and whether or not we can put it on a pallet, or if you can ship it without the pallet or something else, you can gain a few extra inches, but then you're adding extra risk. So you don't gain a whole lot. So about a little over 9 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Howard, I mean, one thing to consider too is when you make the area of the glass so big, the thickness of the panes increases, right? So at certain sizes, you might be, let's say, 6 millimeter, 4 millimeter, 6, and then you go to like 888 or even 10 millimeter. And I've had a lot of projects with large glass, and so there's another issue, and that is simply the weight. You know, when you make each individual pane so big, then all of a sudden there's an added expense and added weight in having to do it with thicker glass, and then your cavities, your gas fill might shrink a little bit, and so the thermal performance isn't quite the same. And so while I appreciate large glass as much as anybody, there is a good reason to every once in a while, you know, break something into 2 pieces or whatever. So just keep that in mind, because for stability, wind loads, and everything else, the glass gets thicker the larger it gets based on the area. And that's something that I've sort of fallen into once or twice, where I had to sort of figure out where is that sweet spot, also from an economy perspective, because every time you increase the glass thickness, the cost goes up, obviously. So if you can do a larger unit, even with a mullion in thinner glass, it's going to be likely cheaper. So you can play that probably back and forth with the vendor to suss out what's the best breakdown internally.
That's a good point. Thanks for adding that.
Yes, and to elaborate a little bit more on that, as well as also with the performance, is keeping your contractors happy. Seeing 1,000+ pound IGU and everyone on the ground with white knuckles is not an enjoyable process, although we do it all the time.
On that note, do you foresee offering a thin triple? Like a triple pane with the interior pane being ultra thin?
No, that's a good question, because with the IGUs, it's typically all of them are the same except for acoustic glass. And so with the quoting software, and this goes back to the beginning, the quoting software will actually kick out when you hit a certain size. It'll take you from 4 millimeter to 6 millimeter to 8 millimeter. And I have not seen an IGU with an ultra thin, one of the layers being ultra thin, no.
I was at the EBA High Performance Home Builder Summit last week, and some of our some manufacturers in the US were touting the thin triple. Just
Yeah.
for same performance, but they can be lighter and potentially more affordable. So
Right.
just curious, but totally depends on your supplier for your IGUs, I guess.
Exactly, and that is what it boils down to are the European glass providers compared to the American glass providers. And an item to always highlight the difference between the American glass and European glass is going to be the waviness. A lot of the American glass isn't so smooth, which you can really tell when you look at a European window from the outside. The reflection is almost mirror-like, whereas a lot of American glass, you're going to have distortion, especially in the corners, and then also iron content and green tinting is a big reason why we bring glass over from Europe is they have a very low iron content in the glass. So for example, in a bathroom, if you have white tile, I have worked on projects in the past where you have an American window next to a European window or door for what reason you may have. The tile that's white next to the European unit will be green next to the American unit. So the glass providers over in Europe, they really run the show when it comes to specifying the glass, and most often it will all be the consistent width. So I have not seen any ultra thin glazing from the European suppliers.